Hello, and welcome to another episode of Backyard Progression with me, Bronwyn Kenku, where I go through my backyard and talk about how seasons change. So we always start with last week's video, so we get kind of an idea of like where things were. Um, it was really flooded, if I remember correctly. Uh, Spring showers are legitimate. There's just a lot of rain, and a lot of that's waking up the soil, waking up the different animals and everything. There's a lot to be aware of. Unfortunately, we have Japanese knot Pardon me. Uh, so that is a problem that we have to manage. There is a raccoon that was in our backyard that is going to be decomposing right there. Um, it was decomposed to the point where the fur was unsavable. But I'm happy to collect the bones, and I want to start getting better at collecting the ligaments and the tendons and whatnot, because those are really useful for a variety of bindings and everything. Often used in a lot of native cultures and things where they had these sorts of resources. It is another week. It's always amazing how uh, going through and working at things, you forget a lot about what you've done. It's easy to be lost in the current moment and forget about all of the things you've accomplished recently. It's it amazes me week to week all of the things that I've done that I don't realize. It's really quite funny in that way that like I need to do better at remembering what was going on so I can better plan for the future. So, currently, I decided that this giant bush area was a problem. And it is full of elderberry, which is awesome, but it's also full of wild rose, which is not awesome because they don't bloom, they don't do anything, they're just giant pricker bushes. Awesome. Also, friendly reminder, poison ivy grows on trees like that. Unsure if the quite the type of poison, but a lot of the times I see the reference pictures in like just of the plant, but seeing the plant in the environment that you're gonna find it can be a bigger and better warning. Um, but it's it's very important because sometimes it just looks like this where it's just vines. Huge. Make a big deal, big difference. Don't make the mistake of some people. It is very easy to miss if you're not paying attention. Um, Talked a little bit in the past couple weeks about reducing the amount of mosquitoes, reducing a lot of the different problems that are going into living in a place like this because life cycle, everything. You have to just live with the creatures and be part of them. Unfortunately, different boggy sections are supposed to have the appropriate wildlife, which I don't think they do at the moment. I think I should look into that a little further and see about transplanting some more plants to even out some of these bogs. But hopefully, by opening up the sections that I'm working on and better routing some of the water, it'll just flow through so it won't just stagnate. So hopefully, those boggy spaces will be less boggy, in all honesty. That's really all I can hope for. So we will see how that goes. To be clear, this is live streamed on Twitch TV/Bronwyn and I play a lot of games there that I feel like I should have played back in the day. Occasionally some new ones if they really catch my interest. But my number one issue in games is tedium. Like, if you give me a way to get a coin for free, and like I can just do this, but it just like involves leaving the room and coming back. To me, that means I have infinite money, but it's tedium. Like, so certain aspects like that where it's risk-free, it's just time-based, there's no actual threat, there's no real gameplay there. It doesn't feel good, because that's not how things are in real life either. Like, real life, you find a resource and hope that you can utilize it well in such a way where it's renewable. If it's non-renewable, make the most out of what you get, because that's not coming back. So I'm thinking about getting a mini wood chipper, if I can, and turning all those sticks rather into from ash. I can make them into wood chips and fill in some of these spaces and better utilize them, because I feel like that might be a better answer than, literally doing nothing with them. So I'm keeping that in mind. I'm trying to best utilize the space we have. Here I'm picking some of the wild onion. Super good. Again, taking just a few and not taking out the bulb. The bulb will keep growing new onion. It's really nice. It's a thing you can do at home. If you buy scallions or any of the like onions with the bulb and the roots coming out of the bottom, you can get those in water, cut the tops, and they'll grow new tops. So, with all the flooding and everything, that washed down a railroad tie into this section over here that you can't see. But I was able to create a bridge this past week, and you'll see that in the next video. So that's exciting. That was a project that I put myself through. Also, I've just been busy picking up a bunch of sticks. So hence the thoughts of what I can do with sticks to better fix up my space. Because you get a lot of spaces like these where it's just muck because the ground is too low. And there's probably a path I want to make for some of these spots so they can drain out appropriately into the creek. Because having this much standing water is just not good for me. It just leads to more mosquitoes, and we don't want that. So hopefully I can figure out some of the different ways to do that. Maybe figure out some better pathing. It's hard because every now and again you want to do something with a space, but technologically it's kind of tricky. Like, there isn't a good tool to trench out a space and make it lead somewhere. There probably is. I mean, like, there's definitely electric ones, and I know a plow itself is a tool that could do that, but I wonder. Wonder how hard it would be to make a plow that I can like hand plow or just like pull with my own body instead of needing cattle or anything of that magnitude. Just something small. I will have to look into that. Make a note here. Make a plow. Because so often I'm needing water to not be where it is, and can't always be like actively moving it. So your options are raise the ground level so it goes somewhere else, give it a channel somewhere lower so that it can drain there, or bail it. So trying to do the first two is probably the answer. Wood chips seem like they'd be good for this. I'll have to look into that, but again, funds and whatnot, and seeing what's available in that kind of a thing, because I don't think that's a very common item, and I don't know how much that's going to cost. So, have to keep that in mind, have to, like, keep mobility in mind, because what I'm just thinking of is, like, something yay big. Like, box I can carry, have, like, a hand crank or a foot pedal crank. That'd be kind of cool. And then just, like, feed in sticks. I don't know. I feel like it could be good. If it doesn't exist, maybe I'll have to get on somebody to make it. I would love outdoors sponsorships and things, and like to be able to do reviews, because there's so much out there that campers use. Like, I'm not camping. I do camp, but a lot of the time, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is just like upkeep and um, general uh, maintenance of this forest more than I am in a situation where it's like weird little stuff like making a fire with a flint and steel. Like, hey, that's cool and all. I appreciate it. I love the concept of doing something like that. But I adore Primitive Survival, I believe is the Primitive Technology is the YouTube page. They're fantastic. They do bushcraft where they're completely silent through the whole video. They have subtitles for what they're doing if you want better understanding. And they kind of like go through this whole endeavor of what you would need to do as a primitive person to ascend in this whole technology business. Currently, he has a brick house with shingles, and he's working on better utilizing iron. Like, so for a long time, I didn't know what the spots in the creek that were really orange were. They're orange, they're mucky, they're just. It looks wrong, for sure. Like, it's. Like, what is that? And apparently, that's iron bacteria showing up. I don't know if that means there's like iron in the ground and it's seeping outwards, or just like it's a type of bacteria that exists in certain stagnant waters in certain situations. But regardless, he's been doing a lot of interesting things with it. He made a really solid concrete kind of substance out of it. That was really fascinating to me. And to have a use for this stuff is really interesting, and I definitely want to see what I can do, see what I can utilize to make that better, because it would be cool to have a material that is worth using in this area, because clay's kind of annoying to use, you know, in my personal experience. I haven't tried to work with it in a long time, but the clay we have here is extremely hard, and it doesn't want to be a malleable clay, like what most people would think of when they say clay. Um, it's to me, it's more of a ground type. Like, ground tends to be soil, clay, and sand. So the different mixtures of the three will give you different terrain. Mostly sand is going to be very silty, and you get that in the sides of creeks and whatnot. Mostly clay is very hard and not very acceptable to life, so you get your creek beds. And soil is obviously the ground, and different parts are more uh, drained when they have more sand, and less drained when they have more clay. So, that's my experience. I could be very wrong. There's probably someone out there who would love to correct me. Please do. I would love to learn more. I would love to be better at what I'm doing and know what I'm doing wrong, because that's one of the most infuriating things in games for me. When I'm in a situation where I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's wild because games often have those moments where they expect you to have picked up on something. So if you get into a situation, like, I often think about my first experiences with horror games, like a Resident Evil or Silent Hill or whatever. There would be limited ammo. Okay? But they have enemies that respawn. So you have limited ammo and unlimited enemies. So you have this dichotomy of like, well, I couldn't figure out this puzzle, and now I'm out of ammo. What do I do? You get into these like, well, the game dev expected you to figure it out by now and not save when you don't have ammo, but now you're just kind of screwed. Good luck. Here's a knife. And that's not fun or enjoyable. Like, and a lot of people have had that experience. And too often in my Ocarina of Time first play, it's been interesting because I try to be in that dev mindset of like, okay, they're giving me this. I have plenty of this. How am I supposed to be using it? And it's interesting to take that into your own life. We're going to BRB and set up the next video. Okay. This week, let's try it out a bit. And my current, you have a lot of this, what can you be doing with it, is time. I have a lot of time, I have a lot of energy because of everything going on in my life. So I was able to clear out most of the knotweed. This was all taken down in the past week, and it's regrowing already. It is very prolific. Unreasonably so. And I'm trying to treat the whole thing as a weed. So treating the whole root structure and everything, because if one plant is able to get up and get sunlight, it can feed into the root structure. So doing what I can to better make sure that that's being handled is where I'm at. I feel like that's a good way to handle that. That knotweed is generally unuseful for anything that I can find. Like, it's not hard enough to do anything. It's not very tasty. Like, you can eat it, but it's very sour. Like, and not in the good way. Um, I wonder about drying it, but I imagine it would just dry up into nothing for the most part because it's mostly water. So I wonder about that kind of thing, and you can see that I've kind of trapped through here a little bit more. I'm trying to think about this. The ferns have started coming up to soak up some of this water. It is mostly sunrise at this point. So this is the brush that I'm trying to work through over here. You can see everything getting into more layers of green. Just really good, nice. So yeah, this space is where I was working, and it really doesn't show progress very well at all. Always interesting what the camera sees and what the eyes see and where there's difference. Um, I'm always impressed, especially like having started doing makeup for the camera, in just how much of a difference it makes because skin tone tends to blend into itself, whereas when you have makeup on, it really pops. So it's amazing what a little can do, and you don't need to be very dramatic about it. You don't need that kabuki style, like, big expression to truly get more out of it. So, just little hack, and eyeliner is not nearly as bad as a lot of things. Like, learning how to do eyeliner was mostly practice. Promise. You can do it. Everyone looks better with eyeliner. It's just a simple fact of life. So, it's important to make use. And I've like wondered about making my own. I think it'd be really interesting to make some sort of charcoal based uh, substance, but unsure of the delivery method or like how I would best do that. But it is something I do think about, like trying to be sufficient in my own things. And as you can see, I've started a collection of sticks that I'm carrying. Uh, One of the major things about that and like moving sticks around, because I've been doing a lot of it. So this is real quick, this is the iron sludge area that I was thinking about specifically. But carrying sticks around. Um, a few keen tips. You want to absolutely have it by the base. So like if you think of like the branch going upwards, you want to be holding down here and having the rest of it follow you behind. When trees are growing out, they're spreading out, they have limbs. If you're carrying it the other way, those limbs are going to get caught on things. If you carry it the other way, the limbs will branch inwards and they will make it a lot easier for you to go about your time. Also, only carry it a little bit in front of you. So you should only have to about here, like distance wise, this yay far in front of you with the tail ends. Because otherwise, if they're out too far, they're going to do the same thing as the limbs. So keep that in nice and tight. I still have to move all of this, which is an issue, because there isn't a good path over from this point. So I've got to figure that out, or just like do a bunch of little trips, because that's just another option. Like, I do have that option. It's funny how that can be forgotten. Like, it's one of those things where you can play a factory game like Satisfactory and move all of the stuff yourself. Like, if it would suck, it would suck a lot, but you can do it. And it would definitely change the way things worked for you. So I'm imagining like almost a more Minecraft style. Um, there are certain mods that add bigger and bigger machines. So also, like I said, this railroad tie got washed downstream, so I used it as a little bridge here. So that's a little bit nicer, making my way through just a little easier. I appreciate that about me. Cleaned up this space a little bit, but having a resource and having a space where it's becomes usable. So like back at the house, for example. So if I'm utilizing that stuff back at the house, it's a pain to get it there. But like I was saying with the chipper, if I could get a mini chipper, get it out there, and then utilize it out here, make a pile of sawdust or whatever, it would definitely change the way things work. It wouldn't be so bad to have these piles of just stuff that need to get mulched. So, that's why I'm stuck on that idea. We'll have to see what's out there and what's available. If because doing it by hand is not feasible, unfortunately. Um, cause like with base tools, with the tools I have, I should say, because I could cut up little sections with the hand axe, like a hatchet, or the saw, but that's a lot of work for a little bit of progress. So I don't know how I feel about that. And I've always been big on time management. Like I was saying earlier with gaming, if something is just a matter of time, it is finding out what is the best utilization of your time and how best can you do these things. Like, what's the answer when it comes to making some of this stuff and getting further, better results? It's wild. Like, because with that in mind, you get further. You learn how to do something quicker and faster and better. Like, now if there's a branch, I don't have to go all the way back home to get some scissors to break it when I can just snap it using techniques that I've learned. It's it's important to care about your time and value your time. If you're under the employ of someone who does not value your time, you are not going to feel respected. That is all there is to it. Um, when your job takes most of your day, having a boss who wants you to go into these meetings that put your entire team or just you way behind, it feels devaluing. If you're done in no time and you're just kind of like hosting on, then yeah, meetings are great. Meetings are like, wow, I have more filling my day. Like, there's just nothing I want to do more than hang out and do nothing. Because it's very fucked up that a lot of jobs are not great at allocating resources and allocating people to jobs that work appropriately. So oftentimes one person has the job of many people, and there's people who have half of a job basically, and they're just filling out that time. And nothing against them. That is not to say that they're doing anything wrong. Like, more jobs should be half a job, where even if you slack off, most of the time it's going to get done and it's going to be sufficient for what people need. So I have a pile of sticks at this point, and it's becoming unwieldy. But I persevere. I am making the mistake I had mentioned prior, where they are out a little bit too far. And in that moment where I was struggling, I was trying to back up and encountering that same issue I was talking about if you are holding them backwards. The same goes if you're trying to walk backwards with them appropriately. So, don't get stuck like I was. That bouquet is about all you want for the most part. If it gets any more out of control, then you're going to have problems. Uh, don't be afraid to stop and readjust, because sometimes you'll realize things can fit together a little bit better and you can make the most out of your situation. I love my little pond with all my little critters. I would like to make it better for them, but I don't know what that means, unfortunately. Like, what having it, what they would need or want to be more effective would be really interesting to know, and I'd love to help them out. Because I know a lot of the other animals, like the raccoons and the skunks and the possums, also enjoy having a water source. So it's trying to balance for everybody, but for me personally, having these open spaces definitely helps to get through, to deposit and collect sticks, to better utilize the space. So, a little bit on Garb today. I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild because Tears of the Kingdom's coming out, and it's looking a little bit closer at the Rito fashion of having these like scrawled things to kind of cover up some blander winter gear. It's really interesting. They have a very specific style, and I mean like their natural feathers in theory aren't the best for cold. That's why birds migrate. But some do stay all winter. So it's it's interesting, it's different. Um it's amazing the way you can incorporate little things like this. This is interesting. It's uh, unexpected in a bunch of ways, and I'm sure there's different aspects and utilizations that can be done. I love looking at the garb in uh, games like that actually take the time and care to make a character and make them reasonable for the world. Uh, the Shadows of War franchise also did this really well with the goblins and the orcs. They have fantastic kits that are well put together. They have a lot going on, and that's more realistic, in all honesty. And I'm going to stop for 1 second because this was a really cool addition. We had some excess bark lying around, so we were able to make a path that looks very much video game-esque with some bark. Ah, love this. Perfect. It's rare that it happens though, because we don't just go stripping bark to do that, because that kills trees. And any of the downed ones are usually too small or too old. Already have lost a lot of their bark. So, things are growing, progressing here. Our daffodils, as seen up here, are completely done. They have potted out and are now just back into being dormant till next spring. So, end of that era. Got some different seed pods and things hanging out here. Traveling the creek. That works. I should probably collect those and put those into the swampy areas, thinking about it. Seeing if I can't make more trees happen. Because that would be a good idea. Getting some willow specifically because it's so good at living in swampy spaces and absorbing a lot of water. So that could be good. I'll have to remember that for after lunch. And yeah, that is this week. Hope y'all have had a good time. Hope that this video gave you something or just a little bit of nature in your life. And as always, I hope that you all have a better day, better week. Hope that you can really make your day and week better utilize your time, better value yourself. Until next time, peace.